Hi, it's Lisa Rubel from Quilty Zest, and I'm here today on the Sit and Sew YouTube page to show you how to turn a fat quarter bundle into an adorable tote bag. Now you can see I used a Halloween fat quarter bundle to create this bag, but you can do it with any fat quarter bundle you like. And this bag has a patchwork square center along with a strip at the top and bottom, handles, and then of course a lining inside. It's a great scrappy little addition, and we've done some machine quilting on it to give it a professional look. So keep watching this video to learn how to make this bag, and head over to Sit and Sew Fabrics to check out all of the different fat quarter bundle options there are for making your own. So where can you find the pattern to make this cute scrappy tote bag? This is one of the free downloadable patterns when you purchase Fat Quarter Bundle at Sit and Sew Fabrics. And behind me you can see some of the other free patterns that are available. A couple baby quilts, a table runner. We've got a variety of choices that you can make when you grab a Fat Quarter Bundle, like I said, including this cute tote bag. I'm going to use this cute bundle of Halloween fabrics to make my tote bag. But the great thing about this pattern is by using Halloween fabrics, it looks like a Halloween tote or a trick-or-treat bag, but you can use florals, brights, dots, anything you like, any fat quarter bundle, and make a tote that works all year long. As we start piecing, let's talk about thread too. I'm going to use a darker neutral thread. This is the Madeira Katona blue-gray. And I'm using a darker thread because the fabrics that I have mostly lean a little bit darker. So by using a darker neutral, my thread will blend in as I piece. But then I'm going to quilt both sides of this bag. And for that, I'm deciding between these two variegated threads because they'll add a lot of interest to the bag and work with the colors that I've used. This is the Madeira Katona Coral Fish. It's a bunch of different orange colors. And then this is oyster shell, and it's different shades of gray. So after I get my bag pieced, I'm going to decide which of these to use to add some decorative top stitching through machine quilting to my bag. Let's talk cutting for our tote bag. So we're working with fat quarters, which means we're going to end up with a scrappy looking tote bag. And what you want to do is start out by cutting the largest pieces first. So I started out by cutting my two lining pieces, and I've got them in two different prints, which will be fun on the inside. And then I also cut my handles and the top and bottom sort of rims of the bag. Once I have all those larger pieces cut, then I go back and cut the squares. We're going to do a patchwork center on this tote bag, and each side of the bag will have 3 rows of 5 squares each. So that's 15 squares per side, 30 squares total. So I just went and cut probably more than 30 from my remaining fabrics from the fat quarters. So I've got a nice scrappy selection to work with. And then what I did is I laid it out for one side. So you can see here I've got 3 rows of 5 for the scrappy section. And then once those are sewn together, this is the top edge of the bag, and then this is the bottom edge plus the actual bottom of the bag. So what I'm going to do is sew these together in rows and then join the rows together to make this patchwork section. And we're going to make 2 of these. You don't have to make them exactly the same, but what I would recommend doing is thinking about, after you make the first one, thinking about what fabrics are on the sides for your second one, so you don't end up with, say, 2 of the same fabrics next to each other. So when I do the other side, I want to make sure that that I've got a different fabric on that side. So if you make one first and then have that nearby while you set up the second one, you can make sure you've got nice variety in your scraps. So after you've joined the squares into rows, when you press them, you want to press the seam allowances in opposite directions. So this top row, I have the seam allowances pressed to the left, the second row to the right, and the third row back to the left. That way, when I start to join the rows, I can align the seams and my seam allowances will nest. They'll go in opposite directions, which makes it easier for me to get really nice joins of those seams. I've got my pieced bag front. Got the patchwork section in the center, and then the top strip and the bottom strip. And after I put all those pieces together, what I then did is baste some fusible batting onto the back. I chose to use this fusible batting that you can iron in place. You can also use regular batting and a basting spray or pins. And so I've got 2 of these, and you'll see I ended up doing my squares exactly the same in both. And so now it's time to do the machine quilting. And I told you I was looking at 2 different threads, so I'm going to lay them out on my bag here. And I've got the gray colored variegated and then the orange variegated. I'm going to go with the orange variegated thread because I really like how it looks on this black dot, and it will add a little pop on all of the other fabrics as well. So what I'm going to do for quilting is I'm going to put my walking foot on my machine, and I'm going to do straight lines 1/4 inch on each side of the seams. And that will just give the bag a nice professional look and just add a little extra flair to it. So here's my quilted piece. You can see the horizontal quilting lines that I did with that variegated thread. And now what I'm going to do is put my bag together. So I've laid one of my bag outsides right side up. I'm going to put this one right side down, and I'm going to pin around the edges. And when I do, I want to just check and make sure that my seams line up on the sides. Okay, so I've got my 2 sides and my bottom pinned, and I'm going to stitch the sides and the bottom with a 1/4 inch seam allowance, and I'm going to backstitch at both ends up here at the top so that when I turn the bag right side out, those stitches hold. I'm also going to do the same thing with my lining. So I've got my 2 lining pieces. I'm going to put them right sides together and throw a couple pins in as well. Now the only difference between the lining and the outer bag is that we're going to leave an opening along the bottom for turning the bag right side out. So what I typically do when I'm doing that is I will put a double set of pins here along the bottom. And that reminds me that I need to stop and leave an opening here when I stitch. So I'll start up in this corner, back stitching at the beginning, go down the edge, pivot, stop, and back stitch here, leave this section open, and then stop, start again, and go up this side and back stitch at the end. Got my outer bag stitched together, and now we're going to box the bottom of it. And I love this because it's like a little magic trick to give your bag a base, and so that it will stand up on its own. So what we're going to do is cut 2 squares out of the corners. I'm going to cut a 2-inch square out of this corner. You can do it with a rotary cutter, or you can trace on your ruler and then cut it with the scissors if you prefer. Same thing on the other corner. Okay, and then the next step is to actually box that corner that you just created. So what you do is I put my fingers in and I'm going to pull from those 2 corners, and it's going to align the side and the bottom seams. And I'm going to send my seam allowances in opposite directions so that there's less bulk, because there are a lot of layers here. And I'm going to pin across. And even though this is a small area, you want several pins because it is so bulky and it wants to move. So you can see if I flatten it out there, And I can get it to lay straight like that. Mine still looks a little, get that out of the way. But as you stitch, this will actually be a straight line. So I'm going to tuck that back in a bit. And you're going to stitch along this edge right here, these raw edges from joining the top and the side and the bottom seams. And you definitely want to backstitch at the beginning and the end because that will help hold your bag together. So you're going to do that on the first corner, as well as on the second corner, as well as on your lining pieces. So you're going to be boxing 4 corners. Our next step is to create the handles for the tote bag. So I've got 2 strips. I've got a black and an orange stripe, and I'm going to stitch all the way down one side and all the way back on the other side with a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And now that I've done that, I'm going to turn this handle right side out. Okay, once it's turned right side out, the next step is to press it flat so that the orange is on top and the black is on the back. And after it's pressed, then we're going to top stitch. So I'm going to stitch again with a 1/4 inch edge down one side of the handle and up the other side. And right now my handles are the full width of my fat quarter, so they're about 21 inches. And when I go to put them on the bag, I can shorten them to whatever I want. But I recommend starting with this full length so that you have options as far as the size, the length of your handle, so you can see how your bag will be held. So we're going to make 2 of these handles. I've got my handles made, and now it's time to add them to our tote. So before we pin on the handles, a quick word about their length. I have cut mine to 17 inches long. What you can do is pin them in place and lift up your tote bag and kind of audition and see what length you want them to be. And then just make sure you cut both handles to the same length. So I'm going to pin them about 2 inches in from the side seam on each side. And what I do is I put 2 pins in because I find if I just put one in the middle, as I'm going to sew it on, sometimes it shifts and then your handle is not on straight. So I'm going to go 2 inches in from that edge as well and pin this one. And then I'll do the same thing on the other side. And after I have these pinned in place, I'm going to just baste them in place so that they are secure when we sew the lining and the outer bag together. But by basting, you know they're in the right spot and you know they won't shift as you're sewing that outer top seam together. I've got my handles basted in place, and so I just sewed them a scant 1/4 inch from the top, and that way that stitch line will be hidden in our next stitch line, but you can see they're both attached. So now we're going to take the lining and tuck the outer bag inside of it, and you'll have right sides together, right sides of the lining and the outer bag. Make sure those handles get tucked in. And we're going to pin along the top edge. The first thing I do is pin at the seams on the 2 sides. And we're going to make sure that we're aligning the raw edges all the way around. There will be a little extra bulk at these seams because of the layer of batting or fusible fleece inside the bag. But you should be able to stitch through it no problem. And then after those side seams are pinned, just going to go and pin along the top edge, making sure that my raw edges are matching between the lining and the outer bag. And then once I have this all pinned, the next thing to do is sew around that entire top edge using a 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now I like to start at one of the seams because that way if my beginning and ending line don't quite match up, it's kind of hidden on the side of the bag. But start on the seam, make sure you have the rest of the bag tucked away so that it's not going to get stitched through, and stitch around the whole top of the bag. Okay, we're just about done. Now that I've stitched along the entire top edge, I'm going to turn the bag right side out through the opening in the lining. There we go. There you can see my handles secured on both sides, and we have 2 steps left. The first step is to stitch the opening in the lining closed now that we have the bag right side out. There's a nice little folded over edge and seam allowance, and so you can just go ahead and stitch that closed. And once that is done, we're going to tuck it inside the bag, pull the handles up tight, and we're going to top stitch along this edge to give it a nice finished look there. And I'm going to use that variegated thread again. But before you do the top stitching, what you want to do is first finger press and then go and iron that edge so that the lining is on the inside and your top fabric, my black and orange dot, is right up at the top. So your seam allowance is at the top. And so you get that worked into place all the way around. Again, I do it with my fingers first, and then I secure it with the iron, and then top stitch all the way around that top edge of the bag, 1/4 inch from that top, and your bag will be complete. So I hope you enjoyed this video to learn how to make a cute patchwork bag like my Halloween version here. Head over to Sit and Sew Fabrics to check out their collection of fat quarter bundles that you could use to make your own bag, as well as their threads and other products for sale. And make sure to subscribe to the Sit and Sew YouTube channel so that you can continue to see all of the great tutorials that we offer here.